Hello everybody, welcome back to another video on the ChaddyTheChump channel. It's been a bit of a while since I've done a longer video like this. Look, we've been a little bit starved of boxing recently, right? Some because of things that's out of our control, like injuries, of course, but I am back to these long videos. I have also been doing some short ones, so make sure you watch them as well. But today we are going to be talking about Zuffa boxing, the event that they had on Friday night, and the future of Zuffa boxing, because it's got a big future. It has got a big future, and it's got a very exciting future as well. So we're going to talk about it, so let's get into it. So we'll talk about the event that took place on Friday, which was Zuffa Boxing 01. It was in the UFC Apex, right now known as the Meta Apex. They transformed it, no more UFC stuff, and it was like boxing. And I thought that was pretty cool. It's a good location to have these events. Obviously, not as good as, an arena like a T-Mobile. But of course, this would not sell in an arena at all, to be honest with you. So, with that being said, they did well with it, right? I think the Apex fits around 700 people in it, right? I guess it sold out. I mean, tickets were very, very expensive. Of course, it was the first event. And in terms of the actual event, it was alright, right? The card was pretty decent, right? Not many knockouts, which of course, the casual fans do want knockouts. But, there weren't many, heavier weights on it. It was kind of a low-weighted card, I think there weren't many, I don't think there were light heavyweights on it. There definitely weren't any heavyweight fights on it. So, of course, you're not going to expect the knockouts. But there was some good fights on it, like that Sandoval, who was on the undercard. That was very good. And, it's kind of a smaller show. It's a Friday night. It's sort of a thing to get you G'd up for Saturday. And if you're a UFC fan, then the Saturday was that card that was on the other night at the T-Mobile, right? They're going to continue doing cards like that one, which was on Friday. So they're going to continue doing it on Fridays and Sundays, although I do think they might do some Saturdays if there's no UFC on. So if you look at that, because it's Dana White, it's kind of associated with the UFC in some respects. So, they're going to avoid colliding with those UFC cards, which mainly means that the cards are going to be on Friday and Sunday night until they get, big cards, which your Benavidez is, your Andy Ruiz versus Usyk, and we're going to talk about who they're signing in a bit. But until we get those sort of guys fighting on those sort of cards, until then, it will probably mainly be Fridays and Sundays, which, I mean, for me, Sunday isn't great because, of course, I've got school the next morning, but it is, what it is, and this is going to be the way forward, and I cannot wait for more cards. They have a card coming up next week on the February the 1st, which is Jose Valenzuela, and he is, debuting for Zuffa. That is another signing. Dana White did say that pretty much everyone on the Zuffa boxing cards are signed with Zuffa boxing. Now, I don't know if they are going to be working with other promotions. They're certainly not going to be working with other governing bodies, right? So, whether that's the same with promotions, I'm not quite sure. It seems like a kind of old school, we're going to stay separate from the rest. And, the rest aren't staying separate anymore with, Riyadh Season and all that stuff. And although Zuffa is sponsored by Riyadh Season, they very well might just stay away from all the other promotions and making fights and going back to the governing bodies. That is where it does get a bit strange because, of course, you've got fighters who want to fight, for, your WBC, WBA, IBF, and WBO titles, but Zuffa says they're not going to be doing that, and they're not going to be working with those governing bodies. So when you sign someone like ChaddyTheChump and he says on the thing, oh, I want to become, undisputed. Well, how are you going to do that, right? I heard something where he's going to fight on Riyadh season cards as well as Zuffa, so I guess he'd fight for those titles on there. But in terms of ChaddyTheChump, I don't think he will be fighting for his world title on Zuffa Boxing, and I don't even know if he'll be defending his world title on Zuffa Boxing. Of course, he's IBF world champion, so you would think he'd defend his title. You would think he'd have to defend his title when he fights on Zuffa, which isn't going to be long. I've heard March 8th as a potential date that he's going to be fighting, so I don't know if he's going to defend his IBF title. I don't know. I don't know if any titles, and I hope that's not the case, because that's not great, and that's not going to want people to go there. And yeah, I don't know how they're going to get around that. Maybe we'll, of course, have to find out more, because they are going to be signing other big names, right? I've heard David Benavidez, which is a huge one, and that's one you want in America, right? Benavidez, decent ticket sales, got that Mexican audience, and he's an unbelievable fighter as well, and he's a guy that you want in, your promotion that's going to headline shows and be great. But he's WBC world champion, so, and WBC and Zuffa Boxing are definitely not going to be working together, so I don't know how that's going to work. I very much don't know how that will work. In terms of other guys, Alexander Usyk, right, has thought about joining Zuffa. Now, that won't be very long, because Usyk doesn't have many fights. He's got Ruiz as a potential opponent, right? Of course, that Wilder fight falling off. Now Wilder's going to fight Chisora, which we'll talk about that when it's officially announced. But in terms of Usyk, he could be going there as well, which is very, decent signing, right? He's not massive in America, though, so we'll have to see how that pans out. And there's also guys like Shakur Stevenson, who could also go to Zuffa Boxing, leave Eddie Hearn. Bam Rodriguez could be, leaving Eddie Hearn as well, going there. So Zuffa are a threat, and it seems like, fighters do want to go there, right? Maybe they're offering more money. I'm guessing they will be offering more money. And then you've got to think, well, they're not offering that to the UFC fighters. Are they going to, is there going to be a rebel from the UFC fighters saying, we want to get paid more, Dana, you're paying these guys way more money than us, even though we're, selling the same tickets and all that stuff. And that's just what Eddie Hearn said, and I'm not sure if that's gonna happen or not, because if you think about it, it's two different sports, right? So I don't know if they will rebel. They've got nowhere else to go to if they decide, oh, I don't want to fight anymore. So I don't know how that's going to work. But, there's a lot of questions, and a lot of them are unanswered. But soon they're going to be answered. Soon we're going to find out. Dana White said 2026, by the end of this year, it's going to be huge. We're going to be massive. We're doing insane things. So I guess we'll have to see how that goes. But an exciting future for Zuffa Boxing. They've got a show February 1st. They've got a show February 14th, which is a Saturday. I think that's FA at Jagba. And then it's looking like ChaddyTheChump will be back on March 8th. So, very exciting. Zuffa Boxing absolutely gonna take over the American scene, because you haven't got these, big promotions really doing crazy things anymore. Golden Boy are gonna go away from DAZN, because DAZN aren't gonna renew the contract, is what it's looking like. PBC have that with Prime, but it's not amazing. Then you've got Top Rank, who don't have a TV deal yet. So, the American scene is pretty weak, and Zuffa Boxing have it right there to take over. So I guess we'll find out. But thank you for watching this video. Make sure you, of course, like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for all new videos coming out. We're going to do some more longer videos, but also the shorter ones are going to be coming out consistently. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.